still in our preseason mode, looking at the upcoming 2024 college football season. And we decided to do something fun this year because we are together celebrating the return to video game consoles near year of NCAA 2025. Even though it's a 2024 season, it's a 2025 edition. It's like a car company. They issue one model year ahead of where you are on the calendar. And it's back. I remember playing this game when I was much younger, like NCAA 2012 or something like that. My favorite play was always the halfback pass because the computer would always cover the receiver, and I just use it as a run play. So it was a lot of fun. But after a number of years of licensing issues, now with NIL opening the door for players to be paid directly, we have cover athletes like Quinn Ewers, Donovan Edwards. Who's the third guy?
Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter on the cover while they are still doing their undergraduate education in a major academic institution and being paid for it. They used to be a player like a year after they graduated, they could be on the cover. Now they're still in school.
Yeah.
So this is a phenomenon. People everywhere are playing the game. I asked you if you could hold up the box you bought. You said, no, Dad, it's entirely digital. It all comes through the ones and zeros and the Ethernet cables now. But it's a great game and very realistic. The team, which team actually put this out? What is the video game company that produces it?
EA Sports.
Is it still EA? Okay, so they did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Great realism. Just an entirely new generation of college football, learning about play design, learning about defenses, learning about other teams and their tendencies and their stadiums and their fans and their traditions. Just a blast. I've seen you playing it a lot. So we thought we would ask you, Jericho, to say what you might be looking for in the real world of college football. College football 2025, because that's the same players. Rosters are now, increasingly becoming accurate after camps have started. How often do they roll out updates to the game?
It's every month or so, 3 or 4 weeks. They'll do roster overall updates, and along the way they'll do little patches here and there. Some small, and you won't really notice them, and some bigger. Trying to fix bugs in the game, which are inevitably going to happen.
So when Michigan wide receiver C.J. Charleston just starts blowing up and gets upgraded to a 99 across from Will Johnson, then the game will reflect that.
Right.
Yeah, right. Correct. Before his Biletnikoff ceremony, it'd probably be a 99. So let me just throw it out there, like first takes, observations that might suggest something about how college football 2024 in the three-dimensional real world might end up going.
Well, right off the bat, the biggest thing that I've seen is that Oregon is far and away the best team going through simulations. And I could see where this is happening, especially with, you look at the roster Oregon has, they have all Big Ten players in every position group, offense and defense, especially offense. Their offense is very hard to stop. Looking at their playbook in the game, you can score at will. Professional players love to use it, and I can see why the Oregon Ducks in real life like to use it as well, because it's very hard to stop. Other things.
Is it Dylan Gabriel at the controls, or is it at the speed on the perimeter? How are players using Oregon? Are there go-to individuals? So is it just team strength?
Well, it's that too. I mean, obviously, you could put the same playbook on Kent State, and it won't be as effective because you don't have Dylan Gabriel and Tez Johnson, those guys. But what professional players like to do, and I hope coaches do this too, is they hot route. I don't know if you're probably new to this. They hot route, some of you watching might know, is where you can adjust the route. You can change if a X receiver is going to be running a streak, you can change it so he runs a drag route or a corner route.
It's basically like an audible, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And players use all these different concepts, flood concepts, mesh concepts, all of these different combinations of hot routes to expose the defense. And it's cool to see you physically doing that and being like, okay, watching a game, okay, I see that they're in too high, which means that it's going to be cover 2, cover 4, unless they're shelling, which is another thing you can do in the game, is you can disguise coverages, which I love. And just trying to seeing the adjustments that are made, not all the time, but sometimes if it's longer yardage situations, adjustments that are made to try and expose defenses with man-beating routes or certain concepts that will leave zone defenders stranded trying to guard 2 people at once, which can't happen, and it'll get taken advantage of.
So it just seems like in the coming years, as it has done with Madden, you're going to see new generations of kids who never actually put on the pads, never went through a strength and conditioning program in high school, never had to go eat at the training table, now getting into the coaching world because they understand the philosophy of the game, they understand the strategy and the techniques that allow you to beat an offense or beat a defense or scheme, a kick return, something like that.
And in terms of scheming, from not an in-game standpoint, but really just looking at the realism of all the playbooks. I mean, they have tons of stuff. It's constantly getting updated. You have Tennessee's veer and shoot offense. You have Michigan's ground and pound duo when they line up 7 offensive linemen and a few extra tight ends and pound the rock. They have Army's triple option. All of these things are meant to reflect. Like they even have UNLV when they have 2 running backs to one side of the quarterback in a shotgun. Just all this weird stuff that the devs really put the attention to, and I think that's really cool. And it definitely helps grow your knowledge.
I wonder if they have used some AI technologies to look at film and then import that. They can't just have like 500 guys watching film. Maybe they do, but it's an incredible achievement. Technically speaking, you have Madden, you have 32 teams, and in this you've got
130 something, 134 I think this year.
Teams with more players. Obviously, you don't have a 52-man roster, 53-man roster like you do in the NFL. You've got sometimes upwards of 100 kids that you're trying to draw from to put in the game.
It makes you appreciate all the different stadium atmospheres. People try
fight songs,
fight songs, kickoff celebrations,
chants, things like that.
Just different things that go on. Spectacles at Penn State Whiteout and all this stuff.
Now, when you're playing, so let's talk a little bit about the online game that you play. You hook up, via the web with a friend, a buddy, someone in school. Can you play cross-platform? Can you Xbox play?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can do that, or not?
You can play cross-platform. It has to be through EA Play, which EA runs, which I have had to do if I'm trying to play PlayStation people on my Xbox. However, you cannot run a Dynasty cross-platform, which is something that people probably are mad of, but you kind of have to be like, okay, they wanted to get the game out. That's something that's going to take a lot more time and delay the launch of the game. So if I wanted to start a Kent State Dynasty, use the flashes again. If I wanted to, and I wanted to play with a guy on PS5 and he wanted to start out with Colorado State. That wouldn't be able to work because Dynasty is not cross-platform. But yes, online you could play people.
So we, as Michigan fans, all know that the highest-rated player in the game is number 2, Will Johnson, cornerback. Who have you seen as an individual player as you've gone into a game and you're like, wow, that dude just popped. I didn't really see his name listed in the top 5 at his position in the Lindy's preview mag. But in the EA Sports, wow, there's something about this particular avatar of this player that's really tough to stop or just impressed you more than you would expect.
Yeah, I would say in terms of players that you wouldn't expect, the fastest player of the game is like South Carolina's second option at receiver,
Nicholas Harbor,
who is I'm pretty sure he's number 1 on Bruce Feldman's freak list, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's 6'5" and he runs a 10.2 or
99 speed, 99 XL, Tyreek Hill of college football 25. Definitely a guy I want to go after Dynasty. Going to be a sophomore player, got a bright future. Anyways,
doesn't have hands though, but anyway, continue.
You don't need that. I mean, just hang on to the ball and hope you break free. But in terms of like overpowered players, there was a giant recent patch. So in college football 25, players have certain abilities which can enhance their movement. So if you have 360, your spin move is upgraded. Or if you have Road Dog, you will do better in road games. The two different examples, one physical, one mental. Um, the two players who had platinum abilities, which is the highest um, tier of ability you can get, was Quinshon Judkins and Ollie Gordon, both running backs. Both of those guys were absurd to try and stop, especially pre-patch, because you would play against a guy using Quinshon Judkins, and his spin move was unguardable. It was so fast, and he'd cover 3-4 yards in the blink of an eye before you know it, he's running past your defense. And Ollie Gordon's the same thing, just with his juke move, to where he would get certain animations and certain breakdowns to where the defense, it's one flick of the joystick and then it's gone, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can try and conservative tackle, try and hit him hard, try and punch the ball out. Doesn't matter. He's going to break free. That's definitely a little bit less since after the patch is a big patch. That was very important in all aspects of the game because it is still definitely in development, and it's a step in the right direction. It's a good base to build off of, but people just wanted to play the game. And seeing the dev team work as best it can to level the playing field, it's fun to see. And
are there patterns as you see when in the teams that people are selecting and probably picking their favorite team, but are there any teams that like, wow, 4 people are all being New Mexico, like, or is there a surprising number of teams that like Syracuse or players that like Syracuse?
So there's a few ways you could go with this. When you play online, there are 5 tiers of teams based on mainly brand and overall, and so tier 1 is going to be Texas and Alabama and all those top teams,
Blue Bloods,
all the way down to tier 5 when you're playing against UMass and Louisiana Monroe. And what's interesting is all the top tier teams, the people playing as those teams generally are not as good. Obviously, there's exceptions throughout the tier system, but the people who are playing as the top tier teams generally aren't as good and are playing as a team, so it's easier for them to win. Meanwhile, if you're playing like a tier 3 or tier 4 team, a sneaky good team with a fast offense and good skill position players, and you're playing a guy like a really good player, it can be very difficult to stop, even if you're a higher overall team. Now, that also means that some teams are better in their respective tiers. So for some reason, like Penn State is a tier 3 team, even though their players are way better than all the other tier 3 teams when you're playing Texas Tech and California.
Probably because of their coach.
Exactly. And I mean, excuse me, I'm just on a ramble. But there's also, you can adjust who you're playing against. So if you are a tier 5 team and you want an absurdly hard challenge, you can play against the top tier teams. But if it's same level of teams playing against each other, like UCF is probably the best tier 4 team because of their running game, and they have multiple 88 plus overall mobile people on the field. It's just really hard to stop if you're trying to run a 3-3-5 as a Big 12 team.
You don't just walk into Camping World Stadium and take on the Gus bus. Okay, so let's just kind of narrow the focus here as we wrap up to Michigan. Obviously, Michigan's personnel is significantly different from last year. We're going to talk about Michigan specifically roster-wise in the next 2 episodes, but in terms of what EA built Michigan out to be like, obviously Will Johnson is very highly rated. Your Mason Grahams, your Kenneth Grants, Colston Lovelands are going to be very high. I almost said Cole Cabana because Cole Cabana is the fastest player on the team. He's probably in the real world still a walking boot. Who knows? But so what surprised you about the way that the devs put Michigan together? Is it, chemistry in some sense? Is it the defensive unity? Is it, how terrible Alex Orji really is throwing the football? What did you find?
I feel like when you play as Michigan, it's very easy to try and run passing offense because that's what's most fun. You like to get chunk yardages and the big plays. However, what the Devs made Michigan out to be is what they are in real life. It's all these big guys up front and running 12 personnel and just pounding the rock with Donovan Edwards and Khalil Mullings. It would be a lot of fun to play with them last year, obviously being a national champion, but also with the way that the Devs made out the offense to be, at least, it would have been very, very hard to stop Blake Corum running right at you with all those big guys and all those 90-plus overall offensive linemen who've been there for forever. And like Zinner, he'd be a 97, and Keegan, he'd be a 94. And all of these, even the transfers, Henderson, he'd be high up there. And it would be very, very difficult to stop and very fun to play with. But you also have the ability of Alex Orji to roll out when a play is well covered, because in Michigan's offense, it's kind of one way, one read, second read, and if it's not there, duck your head and go. And that's not always the best way to win games in College Football 25, so it'd be very easy to just be like, okay, well, if this drag isn't open and this dig isn't open, then I'm just going to scramble and roll around with Alex Orji, which is very, very efficient in College Football 25.
Okay, and that may be reflected in the real world.
Possibly. Defensively, Barham is he's up there. They give him a really good rating, but it's seeing other people try and run against Michigan and play against Michigan, people who don't know as much, kind of just content creators. They're like, man, this defensive line is a mess, and I can't get any time to throw the football with this defensive line, and that's hopefully reflective of what's going to be in the real world. But Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant are just beasts, and they even gave love to Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart, even when they weren't starters last year, which I thought was pretty representative of what could be this coming year.
I think Derek Moore is going to have a great year too, but we'll get into that in the next couple episodes as we look at first the offense and then the defense, and maybe look nationally at some other great potential offenses and great potential defenses. We'll pick up there next time, but great breakdown on the college football game. You'd probably recommend it to people, I'm guessing, and just grow your brain on actually what's happening in the mechanics of the sport. So until next time, I'm the preacher.
I'm the prodigy.
Goodbye and peace.
Peace.